Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of my podcast. And today I'm thrilled to invite Gandharvi for this particular podcast. Gandharvi is an accomplished HR executive and strategic people partner. She worked as Director HR Business Partner at Crocs India. She also led people functions at Expedia Group and OLX Group. Beyond her corporate roles, Gandharvi is also a clarity and transition coach and co founder of Gavira, where she supports individuals and teams in navigating career transitions with purpose and clarity. So, get ready for this particular conversation because you're going to learn a lot from this conversation. Thank you, Gandharvi, and welcome to my channel.
Thank you so much for having me on your channel, and I'm really excited for the conversation we're going to have.
Sure. And we'll be doing this in two parts. In the first part, we'll try to understand how HR as a career is. And in the second part, we'll try to understand how to find jobs because this is one thing a lot of people are confused. So,
Absolutely.
so in the second part, we'll try to understand how to get recruited. And no one else can tell us better than a recruiter herself. So, why do most job seekers apply to many roles but still don't get interview calls?
So, we all know in HR, when there is a job post, you get about 800 CVs. And that is just through LinkedIn, 800 applicants at the minimum. And that too for, the slightly more junior level, mid-level jobs. Now, because of this, there is mass application and that really lacks a lot of relevance. Recruiters scan for alignment in signals. So if it doesn't immediately fit, or if it doesn't immediately show on the resume why you are fit for the role or what you have done, the resume gets skipped. And we already know ATS does a lot of filtering. So your applicant tracking system is all becoming AI specific, right? So all the fancy resumes with the photos are great, but with the colors and the grids and the specifications doesn't really work anymore because I've been talking to people, and the one thing they say is ATS likes plain bland resumes, plain word text and nothing in it. And I find it very interesting because there was a time when that existed and everybody shifted to graphic looking resumes, but ATS doesn't work like that, it seems. So a lot of times when you keep applying for a role, it could be your resume that is too graphically designed and it doesn't get picked up. The second and the most important is the relevance of it. We have to understand with 700 resumes or even 100 resumes, a recruiter gets 10-20 seconds to scan. So, how do you make the words pop out is more important. And that's why you may feel that you are not getting interview calls because it could be that it's just not given the relevant keywords that a recruiter is actually looking for.
Tell me briefly about ATS because a lot of people don't know what is ATS.
So most of the bigger organizations have, got these systems through which they do recruiting, and that is called the applicant tracking system. It's a fully automated system, right? So from the time you post a job, it posts it for you on LinkedIn or all your other channels. It then is the link that sorry, not participants, candidates apply to, and then that becomes your warehouse of resumes. So it is also used to do maybe rejections of candidates who don't fit the profile based on the words you put into the resume. It could also be that you are a admin person, but your resume is you've applied for an HR job, but your resume doesn't speak the language of that job, and so it automatically gets rejected by the ATS. So the ATS is to ensure efficiency. When you get 700 resumes, you can't expect a recruiter to save everything on the laptop or the desktop. So the ATS is your warehouse of resumes. It tracks the journey of the applicant internally. So whether I have to take an interview or not, scheduling that interview, making an offer, everything happens through the ATS. So for most of the big organizations, they have it. Whether it's through Oracle, SuccessFactors, Darwinbox, there are many that exist today. Smaller organizations don't use that approach. Most likely, they just put the role on LinkedIn, you and do easy apply. You apply and the resume goes directly to the recruiter, but that's based on scale of the company. So that's what an ATS is. As simply put, it's an applicant tracking system. It tracks your application from the moment the role is opened to the time it's applied to the time it successfully clears the process, or to the time that it gets rejected.
So, what is the right approach? What should be the right strategy if anyone is looking for a job?
So I feel one, it's important to really see if the role is the right fit for you. Don't randomly apply, because a lot of people randomly apply just to get the resume into the system. Well, with ATS, it doesn't really help because it automatically will reject your profile. The resume will stay in the system, but may not be relevant to that role. So, what I suggest always is target fewer roles to start with, but go deeper. Don't apply for 300 jobs. Apply for that 10, those 10, 20 companies you want to work in. Look at those 10, 20 companies, but go deeper. So understand the role and the business problem for that particular role, and what companies open the role and what is their business challenge. Then you tailor your narrative. So then is when you can customize your resume for that particular role. Look for those keywords, understand if that's actually relevant for the role or not, and then build that visibility through conversations and LinkedIn. So most of the time you can reach out to someone in the company who can, you can say, hey, I want to know more about the role. LinkedIn is a great platform for that. Or a lot of times they give the details of the recruiter as well, so you can actually just reach out saying, hey, I'm interested, these are my skills. So I think the idea is that job search, in my view, is more about positioning and not so much about volume. So if you position your resume properly, if you position yourself for that role properly and really speak, which I said, the language of the business. So if you're applying for a tech company, as an example, but you're giving examples of a retail company, it may not help. But if you can show value that you have driven through the work done in a retail company and how it applies to a tech organization, that is where your positioning becomes stronger.
And do the candidates need to customize their resume every time they have to apply the job?
I truly believe in smart work. I think hard work is an overused term. So the answer is yes. However, it should be done smartly. So when I say smartly, I don't mean change the full resume every time you apply for a new role. Adjust the headline, look at the key skills and top achievements. That customization becomes relevant and not rewriting. So if you rewrite every time, you will get exhausted, because you'll be like, oh, 20 companies, 20 resumes. How do I know which one will work, right? But these are small tweaks. And see, today, AI is there to help with these things. You can always take the JD, put it into chat gpt or Gemini, and ask it to give you the keywords. Now the point in this is, don't let chat gpt or Gemini write your CV and you just send it as is, but let it adjust it so that it's relevant to that job description, but you need to review it, make it your own, and then customize it. So don't change the whole thing, adjust a few things like the headlines, keywords, top achievements, but make it relevant.
And what is the role of LinkedIn in all of it, and how LinkedIn can be used effectively?
So LinkedIn is one of the players now where, everyone goes to go and apply. And LinkedIn is often the first impression. So what would happen is, when you apply for a role, the recruiter who shortlists it will go to your LinkedIn profile 100%, because you would put the LinkedIn profile in your application as well. And that's when recruiters will look for that clarity, consistency, and credibility. So, where does LinkedIn come into play? It comes into play for first impressions. It comes into play for a recruiter to say, okay, the resume looks great, but does the profile actually match that in the system or not? And for that, LinkedIn is your best play. So, when you are updating your resume, you have to ensure that LinkedIn also plays to that a little bit. So you don't have to then, for every resume, update and customize LinkedIn. But LinkedIn should then encompass your larger experience, the larger work you have done, so that the recruiter can see if it's applicable, whether they're from X industry or Y industry. So a strong profile will show how you think, not just where you worked. So that's why in LinkedIn, having your banner right is important. Having your headline right is important. Putting a few of your ex companies you worked in is important. Writing down accomplishments, projects is important. Recommendations from people becomes Super important in these cases when you are building that career. When you've established yourself, people will come to you automatically without you having to do much.
And what is the role of referrals and how to ask it?
So, referrals can be of many types. I think one of the referrals that works in most companies is where you know a friend or an acquaintance who is working in that company. You see the role open, you write to them, please help me pass my resume there. So that's one type of referral, and that usually has a lot of relevance only because it's coming from an internal person. The second type of referral is where you don't know the person, but you reach out to someone in the company saying, hey, I saw this role, maybe in HR, maybe in that particular function. So if you're applying for a product management role, or let's say an HRBP role, you reach out to someone who is doing a role in product management or HR as an example. And then you ask them, hey, could you refer me? I'd like to get my resume shortlisted because of these reasons. Now, in my view, referrals increase a lot of visibility. However, it is not an entitlement. So, in my experience, I have seen when people are referred, they come with a very entitled approach into the interview saying, oh, I know X person who's senior in the company, so you have to take me. No. Referrals are only that access to get you into the company. So, a referral, like I said, is where your visibility chances are higher and your rejection chances for the first round are much lower. So, when you are approaching a referral, if you know the person, it's much easier. Obviously, be clear about the role, explain to them, hey, I'm looking for a job. This is why I think I'm a good fit. And then ask for their advice if the company is the right place for them because they know you. If you don't know the person, then I would say you should be very respectful. When you're reaching out to someone on LinkedIn or through other means of communication, always be respectful. So be clear about the role, why you are a fit, but also don't push them to keep referring you. Ask for their, request them and try and get that referral through because they don't know you. So they will also take 2 to 3 minutes to assess whether you are right for the role or not.
And what are the common mistakes which you see candidates make, whether it is regarding referrals or CVs, resumes, or their LinkedIn profile?
So I think the LinkedIn profile, as I said, is an impression play, right? You have to ensure your LinkedIn speaks louder than your resume in a lot of occasions because if your resume, usually resumes are 2 pages, so you can't put everything in it. So when someone is excited by your resume, they will go to LinkedIn. So put more in LinkedIn as an example. A lot of people don't. And that's where the first mistake happens, where your LinkedIn doesn't speak the same language as a resume would, but in more detail. The second, I think, is the generic resume. So, a lot of people, like I said, make one resume and float it around, assuming that it will apply to all the roles. But the business problem and the role you're applying for could be completely different within HR as well, right? So, as an example, if I'm applying for a role in talent management, but I am an HR business partner, my HR business partner resume may not excite anyone in the talent management role only because a lot of people today want ready skills. They don't want people to come in and then have to train them. So because I have experience in talent management as an example, I would always tailor my resume as an HR business partner to showcase the talent work I have done and not just the HR business partnering work. So one mistake I feel is generic resumes. The second one is, I think, is no measurable impact. So it's important in your resume and LinkedIn or any portfolio that you're building to show the impact you have made. I built a career framework. Okay, great. Anyone can do that. What was the impact of that? I hired 300 people in the last year. Great. Any recruiter will do that. What is the impact of that? So my time to hire was reduced by this much time. My time to productivity in that career framework for employees reduced by 10%. My learning and development score or my talent retention score increased by this much. That's the measurable impact that people want to see. Can you build results? Because anyone can learn the skill.
Right.
It's not so much the skill that becomes a challenge here, it is the mistake of not putting an impact. And the impact doesn't have to be for everything, but just an overall impact is super important. Overused jargons. Again, let's understand how resumes get filtered, right? So a resume gets filtered by a very junior operations person. He will be given, or he or she will be given some keywords. If those keywords are not there, they will reject the resume. Or if the system has been trained for some keywords, if it's not there, it will reject it. Now, a lot of people use jargons and short forms. Like it's like saying BRB, FYI. Nobody understands it. The system doesn't understand it. The recruiter doesn't understand it. So you have to be careful. If you're using technology terms, that's absolutely right. If you're using framework terminology, that's absolutely right. But if you're using jargons beyond all of this, it makes no sense because, again, I have only 2 minutes to scan a resume as a recruiter. I don't have the time to sit and Google a word. So
Right.
the simplicity of it is very important. Structuring the resume is another one. Why does a resume get rejected? Is because the structure is poor. So you may start with your experience, then go into education, or a lot of people start with education, go into experience, but then go into certifications, then go into something else. You have to structure the resume based on the standards that exist today. Your information on the top, maybe your photograph. Don't, because it's ATS compliant, you don't necessarily need to have the column on the left hand side. Make it all text, put page breaks, have a flow to your resume. So if I'm building my resume as an example, I'll have my information so the recruiter knows where to reach me. I'll have my links. If I write blogs as an example, or if I write articles, I would put something there for the review, recruiter to see. I'll put a summary of my experience, just a summary, because that is the one thing that speaks volumes about a resume. Is, as a recruiter, if I see your summary and it's easy to understand, they will reach out to you. Then I would put for me my skills that are key for that role, or my skills if it's a generic resume, which I would not recommend a generic one. But let's say you have one that you're working with, I would put the skills. Then I'd put the, if let's say you come with 15 years of experience and you have had a couple of hops. So let's say in the 15 years you worked in 8 companies, an average of 1.5 per year or 2 per year. I wouldn't put all of them in the resume with all the details. I'll take the top five, the first five, the most recent to the bottom five, and then the rest I'll put as early careers. So your continuity of employment shows, but you don't need to get into that generic information. Then I'll put my my education, certification, rewards. So that structure is supposed to be super important. So imagine yourself as a recruiter if you're making your own resume and see, would you go through it or not? Chat GPT will tell you what you want to hear. So, use Chat GPT as a first sounding board if you want to, but always use your own intuition because that's super important. And in HR, intuition is super important as an example for when you are looking into roles like this. Misalignment, as I said, right? Biggest mistake. I have had people who have come from, let's say, admin background applying for the, no, as a, sorry, as a HR head applying for a training manager role. And that is where the misalignment exists. I would not say no to that person, but also the misalignment is you are coming from a, your resume says head of HR, but the role is training manager. I would automatically think the system will reject you because it would think your experience is too high for the role at hand, right? Or if you are a tech person saying, I'm a product manager and I want to apply into a architect role, you can absolutely. But then the role has to, your resume has to show that alignment. So misalignment with the role can be very high as a reason, especially when you can't let, if your resume doesn't speak the language of the role you're applying to. So my go-to tag is clarity beats cleverness every time. If you are clever, if you're clear, it will beat the cleverness every time because it's about simplicity.
Right. It was actually a lot of, I was learning because I didn't knew a lot of things. So, my next question is what the interviewers look for in a candidate.
So I'll give you two versions. I'll give you mine and then I'll give you a slightly more standardized one. For me, when I am interviewing people, and then what I've done in the past is exactly this. I always interview for, can you do the job? Yes. I always interview for the what. So, what is the role? Do you have the skills? For me, the most important is the how. You could be brilliant at your job, but if you are not able to do it in the way that is ethically correct, collaboratively correct, without demeaning people, being more aligned and in sync, then I automatically would not take that person forward. For me, the how matters so much more because skill I can teach you. I can put you into a training for a month, teach you the skill. So, and if you look at HR, if you're grounded, or in any other role, if you're grounded, you speak the language of the business, the values are aligned with you, your values and the company values, core values are aligned, that's the how. So for me, at least that is very important. Now, when an interviewer sits, they will always look at a few things. They will look at, can you do the job, which is super important. Can you think clearly under pressure? That is where the situational interviewing comes into play. They will throw situations at you. If if this crisis happened, how would you deal with it? How do you manage change? How do you go about a difficult conversation? How do you take feedback? So they will assess if you can actually think clearly under pressure. And they will say, can we work with you? So are you the right fit? We call it culture fit. In HR, it's called culture fit. But are you the right fit for the role and the organization? So here I feel judgment and self-awareness, honestly, it matters a lot more than perfect answers. I personally always go for the dark horse, the one that nobody wants to take a bet on, because those are the people, in my view, who have the most to prove in a company. People who come with a chip on their shoulder always come with the attitude of, oh, I've done it before, I'll do it again. So when I interview, I always look for people like this, who have a lot more to prove to themselves and want to prove themselves to the organization. But for me to do all of that, skill is super important as well. So please, if you know the job and you fit this, absolutely you'll be the right fit for any company.
And how should candidate follow up after interviews without being desperate?
So I think today's world makes everyone super desperate, because there are layoffs happening, the
Right.
world is changing. Someone said X company just exited 16,000 employees. Tomorrow they're going to exit another 10,000. That's a scary world to be in. And that's when desperation comes into play. I think patience is the one skill set that everybody needs to build when it comes to following up. Because again, recruiter's point of view, they have 700 resumes and probably 50 applicants to deal with. Individual who's applying point of view is, please respond to me. So I prefer to keep it simple, which is, once the interviews happen and if you haven't heard from them, reach out, thank them for the time, reaffirm your interest, saying thank you, I really enjoyed the conversation with you, and ask about next steps. If the recruiter has not told you, in most cases, the recruiters will come back to you and say, hey, we'll push you to the next round, or, we're not going forward with you. But ghosting is real, which we all know about as well. So, in this case, thank them, reaffirm the interest, ask for next steps. I think one polite follow up is enough, because here you have to show confidence, and confidence is shown in restraint. So if you go crazy hounding and saying no because you're desperate, I don't think that would sit well with any organization, recruiter, HR person. So it's important to be patient. And I think through an interview, I'm going to say this, whether it's HR or any other role, you have an instinct about the interview as it's going. You will know if the interview has gone well or not. If you don't, that follow up is great. But if you know the interview has not gone well, it's okay to keep it in your back pocket as something to follow up on. But maybe keep your options open. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. That's how I would approach it if I was a candidate.
And any message you would like to give all the freshers and all the professionals who want to switch, that how they should position themselves for the challenges which are going to come, whether it is recruitment or because of technology changes?
So I think for freshers, my one request is messages. It's okay to work hard in your first few years. It's okay to go through the grind, because till you don't learn, you won't know. So I think that is one key message, that it's okay to put in a little extra when you're starting. And as you evolve and you get clarity on what your next level growth company would look like, then you can absolutely start building that momentum. I think for young professionals or professionals looking for switching, the one thing I mentioned in the beginning was evolution. So you have to keep evolving, keep in touch with what's going on in the market, keep in touch in what's going on in your relevant function. Don't assume that ChatGPT will be the one to write your emails and tell you everything and give you the worldly knowledge. So evolve through learning, evolve through knowledge, evolve through networking. Keep your network big, expand it, keep connected with people, keep connected with what's going on in the world, because things change overnight, or they change in a split second, right? So instead of waiting for that to happen, prepare and say, I want to continue to learn. I want to continue to evolve. I want to continue to do innovative things. I think that is what will help, that agility, that mindset shift. I'll give my example, Soumya. I always, every year, studied something to keep in touch with the environment and the world. And not for any other reason, but because one, I like to learn. But two, I think it helped me also grow, because I was like, oh, I know this, I've learned it, I want to apply it. And that's where credibility comes in. So, for everyone out there, I'm not saying go back to school and study. Pick up some skill, pick up something new that is trending, whether it's AI, whether it's analytics, whether it's new innovative frameworks that you can bring to the table, and then apply it. Don't just study and forget it. Apply it. That's where your credibility will come. And that will help you make the switch as well. Now, a lot of people will say, I can't switch with a new company. Fair enough. A lot of companies want you ready made as is. So either you tailor your resume to it, or you try and find a move internally first, where you can easily, where you have built credibility, where people know you. That's an easier shift to make, where you say, you know what, I've done this role for 2 years now, I want a different role, I want to learn something different. That builds your credibility so much more, where you then go externally after a few years and say, I have done this, all in one company. So that would be my message. Be flexible, be agile. For all freshers, put in some work, get, ready for the grind a little bit. You'll be thankful for it later on in the future, because you'll say, I learned all this in the past. And for everyone else, just go with the flow, be flexible, agile, and keep learning. That would be my message.
Thank you so much. Wishing you all the best for Gavira. And I
Yeah.
hope you will help a lot of professionals, not just women, to switch, transition, and actually find meaning in their work. And to all the viewers, save this video because it will help you in future, and share this video with all the friends and relatives, colleague जिनको इसकी ज़रूरत है. They want to understand how recruitment is done, because this was such an important conversation I had today, and I learned a lot. Thank you so much, Gandharvi, for your time and for
Um,
sharing all these details.
I'm happy to share what I know and my experience. And it was like so lovely speaking with you and being part of your podcast journey as well.
And I'm sure that people would like to connect to you. So I'll put all the details in the description so that people can get in touch with you to understand more. So thanks a
Absolutely.
lot. It was really nice talking to you.
Same here. Thank you so much, and hope you have a lovely rest of your day.